Okay. All right. If people come in late, that's fine. So let's see. Okay, we'll get started and people could join us if need be. So I'm Kerriann Flanagan Brosky.
And I'm Joe Giaquinto.
And tonight we are going to talk about strange and creepy ghost stories. Several of you have been on our past webinars, so we're not going to say too much about our background. But for those of you who may not know me, I am an author, historian, photographer, and a ghost investigator. And I've written 8 books, primarily nonfiction, having to do with ghosts, historic crimes, and in the hopes of teaching people about local history. And what better way to teach people about local history than through a ghost story. I've also co-authored one Italian cookbook called Delectable Italian Dishes for Family and Friends with Mr. Sausage of Huntington. And I've written one novel called The Medal, which is about, it's based on a true story. And it includes Padre Pio, the saint who bore the stigmata. I'm working on my 9th book called Haunted Long Island Mysteries. And that is due for release next fall. And in fact, Joe and I have our last investigation for that book this coming Friday. And I'm happy to say that in September, there has been an adaptation of my book, Historic Haunts of Long Island. It's a children's book for middle grade readers. The book is by Rachel Kempster Barry, and she picked out 16 out of 30 of my stories and adapted them for middle grade. So they're very cute, and I am selling that book along with my other books on my website now, and I'm offering free shipping until the end of the year. So I'll tell you more about that towards the end because we'd like to get started. We have a packed evening tonight. So Joe, what about you? You want to give a little bit of your background?
Sure. Well, my day job is I'm a computer guy, and my night and weekend job, I'm a paranormal investigator and a psychic medium. Not a psycho medium, as Kerriann first thought I was when she didn't know who I was, and I walked in on her lecture one evening. I don't know, it was a Friday night or Saturday night, but it was at the Conklin Barn in Huntington in 2005 during Halloween.
Yes.
And I met Kerriann, and she was thinking about doing a book on ghost stories, historic ghost stories, because she had done all these historic books, and she always got ghost stories from the owners of these properties. So I said, I'm a ghost hunter, and she said, great, help me with my book. And then she went home, and I went back to my sister's house who lived in Huntington. And she says, what did I just do? She says, I got this Joe Giaquinto guy. He could be an axe murderer for all I know. So I had to meet her the next, So I had to meet her the next day at the diner. She said, is your head going to turn 180 degrees? And I said, I hope not, because that's very painful.
And we've been working together ever since. And that was in 2005.
Almost 16 years. Amazing.
Yes. If you've joined in with us the past couple of weeks that we've been doing these webinars, they've been pretty serious topics. So tonight, since it's a couple of days before Halloween, we would like to have a little bit more fun. So we're going to tell you about a bunch of different stories. We've actually investigated over 100 places on Long Island that are presumably haunted since 2005. So we picked, the choices we picked tonight are ones that were very interesting. I mean, people always say, is it scary to do this work? And it really isn't, because we stay away from anything that's demonic or negative in energy. Although one of the names of one of the stories tonight is called Satan's Trails, but we'll tell you about that. But everything we've done has been very positive and keeping on the good side of spiritual communication. But we picked these stories because some are just great ghost stories, some are comical, and we've had a lot of fun. So we're going to briefly tell you about them. And since we have gotten such a good response to the webinars, Joe and I are actually going to discuss the possibility about doing maybe 1 or 2 webinars a month going forward on specific places from the book where we'll give you more details. So these will just sort of be fun overviews to give you an idea of what's been in Ghosts of Long Island, Ghosts of Long Island 2, and Historic Haunts of Long Island. But before we get started, I have something for Joe tonight. Since it is Halloween week, I have a joke for you, Joe.
You do?
I do.
Oh my God,
So
I'm scared already.
before we get started, okay, I'm going to ask you, if you know the answer to this.
Hmm.
Why weren't the people upset when the ghost ate the frog? Why weren't the people upset when the ghost ate the frog?
Something about ribbit. I don't know. Because the
Okay.
rib, I
No.
got you. Got me. You got me.
Well, they weren't upset that the ghost ate the frog because he already croaked.
That's as bad as
There
my.
you go.
Why did the ghost cross the road to get to the other side?
Oh, that's right. Right. Well, only I would have this. I don't even know where it came from. 101 ghost jokes. Could you
That's
imagine?
great. Oh, that's
So
great. Bring it on Friday. We'll take
there
a
you
look at
go.
that.
Yes. Yes. So I figured
All
I'd
right, Jay.
start
I think
off with a little
you,
humor.
that's
All
good.
right.
You're up first, right?
Yes, I'm up first, but we'll be talking back and forth. I want to tell you about the first story that I ever did. This was back when I used to work for the newspaper, the Long Islander, and it was a place called the Old Whaler, and it was located in Cold Spring Harbor, and very, very haunted place. And now it is called Harbor Mist. And you can actually go there now and have a wonderful dinner. They have the igloos and everything set up outside, but it's changed hands many times over the years, and every time it has, people have experienced ghostly phenomenon. If you go into the restaurant, they actually have a copy of this book, which was the original Ghosts of Long Island book, on display there. So what's interesting about this story is that it was originally built. Cold Spring Harbor is was a very successful whaling port. And there was this hotel, the Walters Hotel, that was built. It was later called the Cold Spring House. And as time went on, it was called the Van Orsdale Hotel. But now it was directly across from where the ships would come in, and the men would be at sea for years and years. And as rumor has it, there was a man called Van Weather who came, he was away at sea for a long time, and he found out that his wife was working at the hotel. But it wasn't just a regular hotel, because the second and third floor was actually used as a brothel. So she was working not as a person working for a hotel, she was actually working in the brothel. This was very common throughout the buildings in Cold Spring Harbor, because these women were left for months, sometimes years, and needed to bring in money. And this is how they did it, unfortunately. And so Van Weather apparently killed his wife and the seaman that she was with. So it is said that the ghost of Van Weather still haunts the old inn today, and so does the woman who he killed. There's also a strange story back in from the 1960s, where a psychic came in and claimed that there were many, many spirits, and one of them was the spirit of a woman who died in the 1960s when it was a restaurant. Apparently, as the story goes, she slipped in the ladies' room and cut her throat on the ragged edge of a soap dish. Now, that does sound kind of odd, doesn't it? So I always wonder if it was more of a suicide that had occurred and they didn't want the news to get out. But in any event, it is said that the inn has been haunted by 3 ghosts, and that would be Van Weather, the man that he had killed, possibly the woman from the 1960s, and maybe even Van Weather's wife. So, Joe, if you want to put back that photograph again.
Sure.
This is how it looked during the mid to late 1800s. And you can see the women, hovering about on the second floor. Now, when I first did this story back in 1990, they still had the second and the third floor, and the third floor was very active, and the owner at the time was very terrified. She felt like she was being choked in that area. In later years, another owner had purchased it and took out the third floor and made cathedral ceilings. But when Joe and I were there, this was early on, so it was really before we were working with the ghost box and and doing EVP sessions. We did not get any EVPs that day, but the stories we were told were remarkable about lights and doors turning on and off, people being petrified. There was a shadow figure that was also seen going back and forth. Where you see the women, they're all windows now. It's beautiful up there. But there was a shadow figure that would appear running back and forth. So Joe, I think when we were there, you had picked up a lot of this energy. I wish we had the ghost box back then.
I know, I agree. It was, in a second. Yeah, it was quite a interesting place, especially in some of the rooms in the back. And I loved the area downstairs where the fireplace is.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, I think that was my favorite spot.
Yeah, because we actually did some kind of a segment there too.
We did with
point.
Richard Scholler.
Yeah, it was
we
another
went there
medium.
a couple, and it's changed hands changed names several times.
Yes.
It was 105 Harbor
Mm-hmm.
Miss,
yeah,
Enid Harbor originally, I think, and so yeah. But when we went in the back room there, where the kind of the escape entrance was, I think we had some creepy energy back there.
Yeah.
Felt
yeah.
like people, spirits were kind of running around back there.
And it was also, I forgot, it was also used during Prohibition. There
Mm-hmm.
said to be
As
tunnels and things.
Yeah.
There was a speakeasy there.
Yeah. And there was that woman the woman that got murdered back there. The husband, I think, wasn't there?
Yeah, that was on the second floor.
That was the second floor, right?
That was
yeah.
the second floor.
Did
I give you a photo to put up of what it looks like now?
No, but
yeah.
No, I could
okay.
hunt
yeah.
one up. But,
yeah, no, don't worry about it. Okay, because I love that one. By the way, that's courtesy of the Cold Spring Harbor Whaling Museum. All right, so Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about Satan's Trails? And by the way, we have no clue as to why it is called Satan's Trails, but it is. But we have a funny story with that.
Yes, and let me just so Satan's Trails. Well, first of all, it's one of the weirdest, because it's supposed to be creepy and strange ghost stories tonight. It is one of the weirdest places. Here we are driving to Mount Sinai. I think we were in two cars, right?
Yeah, we were in separate cars.
And we stopped at a McDonald's. You imagine we're driving and we don't know where this place is. It's an urban myth, like Mary's grave is there. You know what? Actually, there's a Mary's grave, just so you know, there's a Mary's grave everywhere. Everywhere has a Mary. Right. Sweet Hollow Road has a Mary. I spoke to friends, fellow paranormal investigators in Ohio. They said, "Oh yeah, we're going this weekend. We're going to see Mary's grave."
Right. So what happened was there was no GPS, so that's why we had stopped at McDonald's, because we had to ask for directions. This was for the original book, so it was like mortifying to say, "Excuse me, do you know where Satan's Trails? Where Satan's Trails is?"
It was really funny. A second. So so we're driving along, and I think we stopped at McDonald's. We got a cup of coffee, go through the drive-thru, and I'm asking this guy, "Do you know where Satan's Trails is?" I mean, people thought we were nuts, and the whole thing was this. Kerriann came up with this idea about Satan's Trails in Mount Sinai. We finally found it, but on the way there, I think we were by the Caroline Church, is it? Mm-hmm. Or North?
No, that's in Setauket.
Setauket, yeah.
I forget the name of what that church was.
That church was, yeah. So we get to this turn. We have to make a decision. We have to go right or left. And Kerriann said, "Well, Joe, put your psychic hat on, and see which way we should go, And as Kerriann mentioned, we didn't have GPS back then. We really were winging it. And we almost didn't want to go. I think, in a way, we were kind of deciding maybe we won't find it. We'll bail out of this thing. So I said, my psychic intuition says make a left turn. So again, we make a left turn, and we're driving for like 10 minutes, and we're not even in the same town anymore. And she says, "I don't think your psychic intuition works there on road map travel." So we went back. We got back to that fork in the road, and we went to the right, and boom, there it was.
And it's odd because there is that church. I can't remember the name of the church, but Satan's Trails is what it's called, and it was located behind this church.
Behind the church, yeah.
You want to tell a little bit about the legend of Satan's Trails?
Well, I looked at it. Basically, there. You mean about the Chandler estate, right?
Yeah, because there were three. There were three abandoned houses.
Yeah, let me tell you
about
it. Yeah. So all right. So here you are. Imagine where the Chandler estate, they had these homes, and they had some celebrities. I think it was like a posh place to stay. Well, then what
And
happened?
Marilyn Monroe, I think, stayed there.
Marilyn Monroe.
at
Yeah,
one-
she's
at
one
one
of my
point.
friends on the other
Yes.
side. So they stay. So several celebrities stayed there. But what happened was they at some point that Chandler converted it into an apartment building. And I guess as things fell off, the place started to deteriorate. There's a little unknown history about what happened to it, but there was this guy named Whacker, and that that in itself, we heard this name. I'm thinking like Jason or Halloween or the hacking with the knife or an
Right.
axe murderer. And I'm saying this is really weird, Kerriann. I really don't want to do this. The energy was so bizarre in that trail. So we're walking on this road into the woods. And here we are, very serious. Kerriann's carrying her expensive camera equipment. I've got my ghost box and ghost meter, and we're looking for these 3 houses, right? I think we passed those shacks on the left, and
Right,
we
but
thought
that wasn't it. Yeah.
that wasn't it. So we
Right.
almost we had a little excitement, like, oh, there they are, and then no, that's not it.
Right.
So we kept walking, and we got to where we said, we can't do this anymore. I think it was getting later in the day or something. And we come to this tree. Of all ironic things, there was this tree, and I have a picture of it here. And
This was crazy.
yeah. So they. Oh, all right. So
No, you have to go back.
yeah. There it is. So I'm just moving out of the way here. So we came to this tree, and a serious Ghostbusters here, and we have this thing. It says haunted forest, witch's castle, 1 mile. It's almost like they knew we were coming. And so, we saw this, and it was so funny because I almost stepped on Kerriann's camera. We were just tripping over each other, and we were cackling as if we were, possessed by some crazy witch. And then finally on the way back, we're walking, and Kerriann spotted these look like steps to nowhere.
And they were I don't know if you could see it, right? I don't know if you could see it in the black and white here, but those are daffodils off to the left.
Yeah, right here. So I think I said to her, are those lilies? Like, I'm thinking dead, like something growing up. It's the daffodils. And sure enough, this was where the houses were. So later on, when I got back to the office, I Googled this location, and we actually saw an old Google satellite image that showed the structures here. So this was a spot. And just to give you an idea how kooky this place was, this is just to play a little bit of this clip. This is a segment of us walking along the trail.
No, it's all right.
Is it something spooky?
Yes.
What?
I don't know. Let's see.
You're not hearing anything, are you?
No. Just a pitter-patter of little camera
Just watch out
lenses.
for my legs. It
Ouch.
just me to put it and then...
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad you said that. I wasn't meant to step on it.
Haunted forest, witch's castle, 1 mile.
What?
And if you listen to that piece of that part of the clip, she actually said haunted forest, witch's castle, 1 mile. But there's a little backstory to this, because the spirits morphed the sound, her voice going to the recorder when the EVP was created, and it actually said haunted cars, witch's forest, 1 mile. And right before that, out in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, we're a mile from anything, you hear a car horn beep. One of those old style car horns, like from your dad's 50s car. And that started for me, this ongoing thing, which wherever I said something profound, the spirits would, all of a sudden, a car horn would beep or make 2 beeps somewhere off on the street. So that's humor for another day, another event. But
Right.
But okay, so
But apparently, to finish up with the Satan's Trails, where that house was, there's rumors it sort of joined in with the whole Mary's grave story.
Right.
That there was a woman named Mary that lived in that house that murdered her children and her husband. So,
Right.
but
And
who knows if
there
that's a legend or what?
And there were the story of the 3 ghosts,
That's
2
right.
older men and a girl.
Right.
and
And the one that was called Whacker.
and he called, yeah, and he was supposed to have committed suicide. So
Yeah.
so the energy there, we definitely felt, we didn't find anything, we didn't see anything, but we definitely felt some wacky energy. Now I'll finish that on that story. You're up next.
All right. So now we have mentioned this if you've been part of the other webinars about the ghost of Uncle Levi. And this was probably one of our most hilarious adventures that we had together. I found out about Lloyd's Antiques being haunted. It was in Eastport. It's now closed. I think Lloyd maybe has passed away. But it was haunted by his great, 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 great uncle Levi, who was a salesman, a peddler, who would go around with his wares and selling them. And he believed, and he was always said that he was a skeptic, but he believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that his uncle haunted the antique store. So we set up to go over there and to meet with him. And it was a rainy day. And when I pulled up, I was running a few minutes late. And when I pulled up, they have a window and I see Lloyd sitting in the window, and Joe, which you can't see in this picture, is sitting to the right where that book says antiques. Joe is sitting on a box, okay? But you have to step up. Like, you can't get the whole vision here because this is a very small area. It's in a window. So he's sitting, this chair was red velvet, and he invites me in. And
looks like in that picture, it looks like he's looking like, oh, you're here.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting on God knows what, and Joe was sitting on a box, and we were interviewing him. And he said to us, he said, look, he said, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in anything until I came here. This is haunted by my great, 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 great uncle Levi, who was a peddler. He never had an antique store, and he wants to be here. And he said that one of his trademarks was to knock things off the shelves all the time. Things would always go flying. On the upstairs, people would go up and come down and say, you know, I want to buy that, table for $60. And he says, what table? And he goes up, he says, this is Lloyd now, saying to the customer, this table isn't $60, this is $600. And they would say to him, well, the man who was up here told us it was 60. So Lloyd was all annoyed because he knew it was Levi coming out and trying to sell a $600 antique table for $60. So he was telling us all this. And Uncle Levi just walked and walked and walked. And his death certificate actually says his cause of death is he just wore out. Okay. And Lloyd tried to get him. He was in a potter's field. He got him out of there. So there was all these crazy stories between Lloyd and Levi. So when it came time to photograph the other area to see if we would get anything, we went upstairs. And as we did so, Lloyd said to us, take as much time as you need. Just be careful. He said, maybe if you're lucky, Levi will knock something over for you. And at this point, again, this is for the original ghost book. We hadn't been doing many investigations at this point, and I didn't really know if I believed him. So I sort of shrugged, okay, yeah, haha, kind of thing. So I had my Nikon, I think I had a Nikon F3 at the time because it was a film camera. And I had a flash attached to it, and I had a battery pack over my right shoulder. So at one point I went to get my smaller camera to use to see if I would get orbs. And so Joe was walking around upstairs, and I had put the flash, I had taken the flash off and put it on the table, and it was connected to the battery pack, which was still with me. And all of a sudden the flash unit, it just went flying across the table and crashed, and it did break. I had to get it repaired. And Joe had saw this. This is the area where it happened. And Joe saw the whole thing happen. And then we had gotten an EVP where you hear Levi like go psst, as if it's me, I'm here. And then after that, you hear a spirit rap, which is a common way that spirits communicate. So Joe will play that EVP net for you now.
Yeah, and I knew it was Levi. I mean, because he was cantankerous, and there was a story and I was checking something on PowerPoint, so if I missed it, I'm sorry. Did you tell about how he used to, he once tried selling a
Yes,
table?
yes,
Yeah,
with
he
the
did. Yeah,
table. Yep.
yeah. So he was,
But
he
look
would,
at this lamp. I just noticed that now. Look at that chandelier
this
with
one,
the, yes, I never really noticed that in that picture,
I tell
how
you,
it's
that
pointing
place,
down.
that is bizarre. All right,
Oh,
here we go.
goodness.
So here you'll hear him, I'll say Levi, and you'll hear him say, Psst.
Levi.
So I don't know if that spirit rap was that he was a little bit angry, upset with us, or he just was letting us know that it almost sounded, that bang almost sounded like something falling off the table again, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
There's actually another, I think there was another EVP we had of actually like a light bulb being smashed. So
Mhm.
it's kind of strange.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to some stories from Ghost 2. So that's what this book looked like. And this is one of the places we're going to talk about right now is Spy Coast Farm and the Indian legend in Strong's Neck. Joe and I spent a tremendous amount of time out in Strong's Neck, which is right next door to Setauket. And we worked with historian Margot Orseri from the Three Village Inn. And it's an amazing spiritual place, and it's very haunted. And we worked on several stories. We had what happened at Spy Coast Farm. And then later on, we actually walked the grounds of where the Culper Spiring, the trails that they had used. So we did another chapter on the Culper Spiring from Setauket, because they also came to Strong's Neck. Anna Strong, that's where the name came from the Culper Spiring. She's buried in Strong's Neck. And we went back to a couple of houses, Joe, we had investigated in various chapters. But for the one where Spy Coast is, there was a gorgeous horse farm called Spy Coast Farm. And they named it after the spies that came, Abraham Woodhull and Anna Strong, everyone from that Culper Spiring. But even before the Revolutionary War, it was a beautiful area right on the water, and there was a peaceful tribe of Setauket Indians that were there for many, many years. And on one terrible night, there were the Pequot Indians from Connecticut. Let's see, did we lose something here? Joe, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, I sort of lost my screen.
I see you.
Okay, hold on. I don't know where my screen went.
Okay, well, we could see everyone.
Oh, wait, there we go. Okay,
yeah,
that was weird.
Yeah,
See, I started talking about these stories, and now it's like
the
all of a
spirits
sudden
are already starting.
we disappeared. We used to have this happen when we were on radio. Okay, I'm back. As long as everyone
Yeah,
can see me.
just so you know, guys, it used to happen to me. She
Yeah.
never got knocked off the
No,
air. I was,
no.
and I was running the board. So
Exactly.
when I got knocked off, there was no control.
Right, right. Okay, well, I'm back. So anyway, so this wonderful tribe of Setauket Indians. In fact, about a year or two later, Joe and I had interviewed a chief. There still are some members of the Setauket tribes, and we interviewed Chief Gail Revis in one of the cemeteries in Strong's Neck. But that's a story for another day. But the purposes of Spy Coast Farm, the Indians, the Setaukets, this is where their land was. This is where they had settled. And one night, they were a very peaceful tribe. One night, the Pequots from Connecticut came, and they were a very warrior-like tribe, very aggressive. And they came and they slaughtered all the women and the men. It was really a horrible, horrible massacre. And then, of course, years later, the Revolutionary War comes in, and there were different, battles and things that would go on in the area as well. And it is said that the area of Strong's Neck is very Indian sensitive, and that the cousin of Chief Windanch put a curse on the area, and that men who live in the area will be cursed and have horrible things befall them. And I have to say, it's very odd, because there was a lot of incidents in modern day of things happening to men in that area. Now, Joe and I had walked this beautiful property. We had walked in the trails. We heard cannon fire. That was a phenomenon. where energy was possibly still in the environment from the Revolutionary War. We had Margot with us at that point. She couldn't believe what she was hearing as well.
Yeah, and we actually, we had gone to the property or that area several times.
Yes, several
like you said,
times.
with Chief Gail Rivas, with Margot that day, we walked along the beach, heard the cannon fire.
And then when we were walking from Spy Coast to those other trails, Joe, where the Culper Spy Ring was, I remember having the distinct feeling that I was being followed by two little children, you know, like maybe 8 and 10, that kind of age. And it was overpowering that they were just following us along to see what we were doing. But Joe in particular, Joe, you had a lot of issues every time we went there. So explain that and
sure.
The energy there.
Yeah, so the energy was very heavy. And when we were I think it was that we were at Margot's house, right? We were walking around by the front of her property, and she was talking about the Indian chief, and we went through the house. So we walked the trails. I started getting pressed. My chest started getting pressed down. I started feeling like chest pains, but not hurtful pains, just like somebody was pushing on my chest. And I started to have this, my adrenaline and anxiety was rising up, and I was starting to feel like I got to get out of here. Like somebody was urging me to leave. And different from the time we had Potter's Field, where I just felt like there was this ill ease, kind of sickness that was pervading the cemetery, and we'd get sick if we stayed there. This was different. This was actually like somebody pressing on me to try to restrict my breathing or something. So I got out of there, right? I think that's the only
there was one time that you had left and I continued it. Yeah. And that was, I don't know, we were there maybe 4 or 5 times.
Other side of the veil.
Right. But it's just weird. Even when you pull in, if you should drive to Setauket and then turn off and go towards Strong's Neck, you could just feel a change in energy. It's amazing. There's so much history there between the Revolutionary War and the tribe. So Margot, our friend Margot, is in the center. And then there's the groom in the boots. She had some amazing stories. She actually saw a Revolutionary War person walking the grounds. It was amazing. And then the other one had been the owner. Right. That she was the owner of the barn. I think she moved to Kentucky now. But a lot of stories about seeing people from the Revolutionary War, seeing visions of Indians. The barn is haunted. This is a blast from the past for me. I didn't even remember this photo until Joe showed me a little while ago. I have a lot of pictures
that you haven't seen in a while. Yeah. And this is the kind. I think this was the cove. There was a fellow out there in a canoe. This is that area, and this
where Abraham Woodhull, right, used to come through here, and Caleb Brewster.
That's right. And I put this.
Caleb Brewster it was who was bringing the information to Abraham Woodhull.
And I put the slide up because again we were by the water on that rainy, drizzly, gray day when we heard the cannon fire, which I just happen to have here. Now you'll hear it sounds like thunder, like from a thunderstorm, but there is a bit of a repeat. When you shoot a cannon or you shoot a gun or something, you get that repeat, that secondary sound, that Doppler effect. But at the end of this clip, even if that is thunder, that it sounds like thunder, there are 2 or 3 booms at the end, which definitely sound like cannonball fire. So you'll hear that just boom, boom, like, well, here we go.
It's in the background. Yeah.
And, it's just incredible that we heard that and we were so excited about hearing it.
Yeah.
And
you happened to have the recorder on because you just
just got lucky on that one, had it on, and it picked it up.
Right.
So that's why I think it was such a faint sound. I think it was meant they wanted us to hear it. So.
Right. And And now Joe's going to tell you about this next one. This is an old-fashioned spooky house. The owner has since passed, and they've been renovating it. But at the time we went there, in fact, I had the title of it, An Old-Fashioned Spooky House. It was owned by a woman named Marina, and it was known as the Rylander Cottage. So,
That's
Joe,
right. Yeah.
go ahead, talk
All
about
right.
that.
So there's so much history to this, and of course, Kerriann, my description of these places is not as in depth as hers. She is the historian. She is the expert. But from what I know, Marina Segway, she had bought the property. The property goes back to 1835. It's a beautiful home. Marina had trouble with it in the later years because she had been married. She had 3 daughters. There were a lot of things that went on in the house. She had witnessed several ghostly events. There were people that died in the house, including a fellow that fell. I think he hit his head on the fireplace or somewhere on a table, died. She had seen a woman in white. She had seen a man in, I think, in a brown outfit or brown trousers or something. I'm trying to remember that.
But the backyard, yeah.
The
She
backyard.
saw a man walking.
Just a man walking. So we went there in earnest, not knowing what was going to happen. I just want to tell Kerriann that she knows this, but I just want to remind her, and I've included a couple clips. I've been back to the house several times, as she has. She's been back too. We did a presentation there a few years ago, I guess. But I've been back there. I've done several seances there with Marina before she passed on. And I got an opportunity to go back and actually do some readings for the current owners who have renamed it to Tide Hall. Was I guess the original name that they had. But they've redone the house. It's just beautiful inside. So I have a couple clips for that. But anyway, we had a lot of fun that day. So imagine, I think it was when we went into the living room.
But the weather, don't forget to say about the weather.
Don't worry, I'm going to cover that. And I have pictures to show you too. So we went into the living room. Marina sat down. We were all sitting around, and I think Maureen was with us, right?
Yes.
The realtor. So we're just doing our interview, and Marina is going on and telling us all these stories, and she's a real storyteller. She has so much to talk about. And the house was like a museum. They had a wedding dress from like who knows what year, 1800s or something. And all of a sudden, we all heard, it sounded like, you know, those like country fairs you hear, like the music fairs, like with a calliope playing or something, or a harpsichord. We all heard this. And we all said, is that someone's phone? You know, somebody playing an instrument? Is that a music box? And it was a spiritual sound. So I do have that clip. So we had that. And then we went through the house, I think 3 floors, right? 3 stories. Mm-hmm. Well, as we got towards the latter part of the event, and there was a woman so there was a whole backstory to the Rhinelander mansion. I think his name was Kip, and he had gone down to Haiti, and he had become involved with a woman down there of a different color, a different nationality. And it was not looked on favorably by the family. So this gal, they kind of hid her out. They didn't really want to let anyone find out. So he kind of gotten pushed away by the family. But there was this story of this girl that was there that we think might have committed suicide or had been abused. And there was this energy of this girl's spirit roaming around the property. I went back there after Marina died. I was invited by a minister to go there and help him clear the house of the spirits and bless the house. And we did a walkthrough. And I actually got an EVP, which I'm not playing tonight, but I had an EVP as we were walking up the stairs. And I said, I feel like Marina just walked through me. And you heard an EVP of Marina saying, you've got Marina. And there was another EVP when Rick and I went upstairs to the room where we did the clearing. And you heard this beautiful young woman's voice say, Lord, I am free, after we did the clearing. So it was a really very interesting night. So anyway, let me show you the house here.
But what Joe, you didn't tell is that when we got to the door,
Yeah,
you
all
see
right,
this
all right,
house,
all right.
the weather,
Okay.
it was like something
Yeah,
out
okay,
of
all
an
right. Let me
Alfred
tell.
Hitchcock movie.
All right, let me tell. Yeah, okay. Let me tell it. All right. So yeah. So she wants to talk about the weather, and there's a reason. It was a beautiful day. Okay. It was just a gorgeous day, and when we got upstairs, this snow squall came out over the harbor, came out of nowhere, enveloped the house, rattling the shutters, howling wind, and there was whiteout conditions. Remember, we couldn't even see the stop sign at the end of the road.
It was
We'll
insane.
talk about while I cue this up. Talk about that a little bit.
It was like something out of a bad horror movie. It really was.
It was like Steven Spielberg. You know,
Yeah.
when he always shows the clouds rolling in at high speed.
But the windows, I mean, when you see the picture of the house, you'll know why
Yeah,
it was a little
you'll know
frightening
why.
at the time.
Yes.
Again, she ran out
There
of
it
money and wasn't able to fix it up, but it was perched up on this hill, and the windows were very old. And
Very old.
the wind, they were rattling and banging and banging. And as Joe said, all of a sudden it looked like we had crossed to the other side because
Yeah,
we looked out the windows, as Joe said, and it was a whiteout. I mean,
It was
just out of
really,
nowhere.
you literally couldn't see
Yeah.
a half a block. And then all of a sudden it cleared up. The sun came out. It was beautiful again. By the time, you got back to your house, it was done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so let's just show you some of these pictures. They're really beautiful. That's Marina. I'll tell you this. I think this is my favorite ever investigation. She was the most feisty, crazy
Yeah, she
Italian
was.
woman. She did it her way.
And this is the area where Marina saw the man in the brown trousers walking on that same path. And then this was a path to the pool or something.
Yes,
I think.
yeah, in the back there, yeah.
Yeah, this is after the squall. I mean, nothing stuck, as you could see. There's no snow on the ground. It was a strange event.
That's the living room.
Yeah, that was where we did the interview, I believe, right? Where
I
we
think
heard
so,
the
yes.
sound of the, that almost like a jewelry box being opened.
And I actually happen to have it right
Oh,
here.
you do have it. Excellent.
So first, I'm just going to play a little. This is the clip where we heard it, and then I'll actually play the clip.
She would just move in spring around May, spend the whole summer painting. She considered herself a painter, God help us, and drinking all day long.
You hear it?
What's that? Music box.
So that was it right
It
there.
almost sounds like a merry-go-round too.
Yeah,
It's
that's
very
what it is.
strange.
If you slow it down, it sounds like it is a merry-go-round.
Can you play that again for the
Sure.
audience?
Well, here I queued it up. Here is the sound.
But in the first, and in the first clip, you hear Maureen say, "What is that?"
Drinking all day long.
There it is.
What's that? Music box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a merry-go-round at like a country fair or an amusement park.
But again, it was creepy with the weather and how the house looked. So that was that was why it was called an old-fashioned spooky house.
Yeah, and this is again when I went back. This was actually I think in April, and you may not know this, Kerriann, but Marina's furnace broke, or the boiler broke, and she didn't have the money to fix it. So we were sitting there. It was literally 14 degrees.
Oh, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, and she had the fireplace going there.
Right.
And just a couple of quick responses. This one is, remember she had the Christmas tree with the lights on it, the white lights?
Oh, right.
All year she had the Christmas tree on. So I asked the spirits, do you want the Christmas tree lights on or off?
Let's ask the spirits. Do they want the Christmas tree left on or off?
Christmas tree on.
Okay.
Christmas tree on. That's a white noise EVP. It's a background noise EVP. And this is funny. You haven't heard this one, Kerriann. This was Maureen talking about the girl who supposedly committed suicide there. And the spirits didn't like that. Watch when they go, woo.
It's a Rhinelander.
Well, we know it's someone.
The young girl who supposedly committed suicide in this house.
Okay, now what we're going to do is stop the recorder.
That's weird. I never heard that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just
Oh,
want to share
is that an orb in there? I don't remember this
that.
picture.
Yes, it is. No, you've never seen this. There's a young girl's face right here, and this is like a orb with like George Washington's face in it. You can't see it as well here, but if you zoomed out the original photo, this looks like George Washington. And here's, see the girl's face right here? The eyes.
It's a little hard to see.
Yeah,
But
I have a
I see
close.
the orb.
Yeah, there's the orb right there. So,
And it
yeah,
looks like
so
there's another orb by the piano.
over here.
But no, you don't see my arrow. Right there, right there.
Right
yeah.
there, yeah. Yeah, so that's it's a really great place. I just want to see if let's see. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So it just was a wonderful place. Again, 175 at the time, 175-year-old house. I mean, you got a lot of energy. A lot of people live there, grew up there, and thank God they were going to tear it down, and then a builder took it and was going to just rip it down. And then the new owners took it and renovated it, and it's so beautiful now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that story, Joe. Next up is one of our all-time favorites because it was quite the adventure at Execution Rocks Lighthouse.
Oh, yeah.
This is off the Kings Point, and it's the Coast Guard is located over there. It took me about 6 weeks or so to get clearance to go in there. A lot of red tape, and also the weather had to be right. The tides had to be right because the lighthouse, you had to get to it by boat, and it had been abandoned for many, many, many years. So Joe and I, one like on a Tuesday in May, it was before Memorial Day weekend, we went out on a 26-foot Homeland Security response boat with the United States Coast Guard to this lighthouse. Now, it looks very peaceful and everything in this picture, but when we got there, the smell of this place, it was smelled of dead birds, dung, clam rock. I had long hair at the time, and I came home, everything stunk. And the inside of the lighthouse was filled with asbestos and things like that, and you could see it was all boarded up. So here's when we're getting ready to go in with the Coast Guard. There were 3 of them that took us out. Now, before there was a lighthouse there, it had all those rocks there. And so during the early days, the 1700s and things, when people started coming over to Long Island, a lot of ships would crash. And that's where the name originally came from, Execution Rocks, because people would die. There was no navigation system, and they would just not see the rocks and crash, and people would drown. But as the Revolutionary War started, later on, the British discovered this island of rocks, and they decided to use it to their advantage. As the story goes, they would go and round up what they called American rebels, and they would put them and chain them to the rocks at low tide. When the tides rose, they would die beneath the icy waters. And for those that didn't perish by drowning, sometimes they were a nice meal for a shark that happened to come by. As if that wasn't bad enough, they would round up more American rebels and chain them next to the skeletal remains of their former comrades as a way of torturing them mentally as well as physically. And what's interesting about this place is that for years, lighthouse keepers claimed to hear the sound of screaming and wailing for the people that were tortured and died there. And like anything else, when a lighthouse keeper would have a contract, let's say, for any of the lighthouses that used to have keepers, there would be a contract that you have to stay for 2 years, 5 years, whatever the term limit was. And being a lighthouse keeper was no easy job by any means. Execution Rocks Lighthouse was the only lighthouse that stated that if a lighthouse keeper wanted to leave, he could leave immediately. And it was because of all the strange things that had occurred there. So Joe and I had a complete tour, and we did a lot of climbing. I mean, here's Joe in the room with the asbestos. You could see the kind of conditions. So it was a very serious day until we started making our way up. Now, the Coast Guard was very much in shape, and they were zooming up these things. But you could see this is a ladder that we had to climb up to get to the light. And we were exhausted. I was carrying my equipment. Joe was carrying things. And when we got to the light, it was very, very small, and you had to crawl around it. And it was all full of gunk. I don't even want to know what was up there. So we finally made it out. And we stood up, and all of a sudden, it was this helicopter starts flying right towards us. And I was I was really taken aback. So it was me, Joe, and these 3 Coast Guard men. I'm thinking, you know, then all of a sudden we see it's the Nassau County Police. Now this is, you know, time had passed a year or two after a couple of years after September 11th. So they saw activity at the lighthouse and they came to check it out. But I got a little nervous thinking like, are we okay? Are we in trouble? I'm like, well, we're with the Coast Guard. Aren't they higher than Nassau County Police? So once the police in the helicopter saw that we were with the Coast Guard, they waved and smiled. But I tell you, the helicopter came within, I don't know, 10 feet of the railing that we were standing up at. And it circled around and you could see them clear as day. And I was so shocked by this. And I turned and Joe was grinning from ear to ear. And I said, what are you smiling about? He said, I love this work. It's like being on Magnum PI. And for those of you who remember the real Magnum PI with Tom Selleck. So it sort of added some levity to this adventure because it was very serious. But we did manage to get an EVP. Again, we weren't trying for anything. We had the recorder going. The Coast Guard tries to write it off that it was a bird or something, but you could clearly hear the birds in the EVP. This is the sound of someone screaming out. So, Joe, if you want to play that for a minute.
Sure. Oh yeah, I just want to set that up too, that when Kerry and I go out, we both are very intuitive, and often we you set the model for the spirits to what you want them to do, because they're invisible. So, you know, a lot of times we'll feel something and we'll call it out so that we have evidence of it in case something happens right after we say that. In this case, Kerriann was saying, gee, I hope I get an orb or something. And I said, you will. And basically right after that, you heard the woman decided to make contact with us, and she's doing this wailing, like this in pain or suffering. Here it is.
Should get an orb or something.
You will. Okay, this is all the house. Uh-huh. What was that?
They're probably opening the door, I don't know.
That's...
And you can hear also a man after that's talking in the background. It almost sounds like he's saying, leave her alone. Listen to it again.
Should get an orb or something.
You will. Okay, this is all the house. Uh-huh. What was that?
They're probably opening the door, I don't know.
That's...
So it's a cool, it's a sad place, but it's a very interesting place, and
Yes.
Sort of a mix of happy and sad there.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time. Do you guys, we had 2 more stories that we were going to briefly discuss.
Well, let's cover it. We got to cover Fiorello.
Okay. Yeah, that we do. Is everyone okay? If you want to give me a thumbs up. We'll do another, because we covered Grey Horse Tavern and some of the other webinars. So maybe we'll just do Fiorello then. Fiorello Dolce is in historical on Long Island. And it is owned by a friend of mine who is a classically trained French pastry chef. It's a magnificent bakery. He is very talented. It's gorgeous inside, and what he creates is delicious. But it is also very haunted. It's almost as haunted as the Country House restaurant in Stony Brook. And it's almost like a vortex has formed there, because the spirits that are there come from all over. They have the employees. If you listen to one of our other webinars about the difference between ghosts and spirits, many of the employees had relatives that had passed that had made appearances there. And then there were also some ghosts. And Gerard was telling us when we first went in about all the activity. that goes on there. And this is a picture that I had taken, and you could see the enormous amount of orbs in this picture just hovering
Yeah,
over.
look at them right over
And
the property.
there's one orb that I had gotten when we blew it up. It had a face in it, and I think it might have been an indoor shot. And Gerard believed that was one of the owners that had owned the building, Charlie. He would always come in, and he loved the bakery, and he would come in almost every day to get something to eat. And when he passed, these orbs started to form that had a face that kind of resembled Charlie. So that was one thing. But then Gerard would close up the bakery at night, and his surveillance camera would be on, and he would capture all kinds of things, things that Joe and I have never even seen. There's like a laser. It almost looks like, that shark that is, I think it's called a sawtooth shark. It looks like a hedge trimmer. There's something that was zooming around there. Okay. Then there's orbs flying around. And this is when it's shut down and no one's there. There was another remarkable incident that took place there that we saw the video. Gerard had, there's a big marble slab in the center of the bakery, in the kitchen, where they make, their different items. And someone had left a roll of paper towel, and they had the paper towel standing up like this, okay? Not laying down. Now, this is in the center of this marble, area, and it's not near any air conditioning or anything. And in the video, you see the paper towel standing up now, turning. A piece of the paper towel is unwinding like this. It stops and hovers, and then it goes back around. Now, it doesn't fall down. Nothing like that has happened. It was absolutely incredible to watch this video. So he has countless videos of this.
Yeah.
And then even in the daytime, right, Joe?
Yes.
We've seen, because the camera is on, and you see everyone, working in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden the oven door just opens up for no reason. And you see one of the employees point like, oh my God, what is that? Knives falling off, parchment paper flying off of things. And then there's this alleyway behind, that's where they bring the garbage, but there's an alleyway that you would never think is part of this whole thing. And it goes behind where there's a restaurant as well. And it was very creepy. And so, Joe, if you want to talk about what you picked up here, and that we found, I told you about some of the spirits, but this is where we found the ghost of Eddie.
Yes. So we went into this alley, and it was creepy. And it was really funny because I picked up on a name of Andy, and there was a guy named Andy McAdoo, who I guess was there at one time, an employee, or maybe he had passed or something. But we were kidding back and forth about names and stuff. And when we went into this alley, there was all this graffiti inside, right inside, that said Joe. It was Joe, Joseph, Joey. My name was everywhere. We were laughing our heads off about that. And then I think we found there was an Andy in there too. So that's why we thought there was that connection. But when we walked into the alley, I immediately felt like someone had shoved some sulfuric acid, something like, it was like when you see these movies like Breaking Bad or something, it's like a crystal meth or cocaine or somebody snorting something that was pungent, that was in the nose. And when I felt this, and it was only in one nostril, I said, this is drugs. Somebody's doing drugs back here. And then there was the story of Eddie. The first time we went to see Gerard, the owner, first time I said, there's a guy here that got into a knife fight. And then we left. And then we came back for the actual investigation where we went into the alley. And I said, there's this big guy. He's like a Jamaican, he says he's a big black guy, and his name is Eddie, and he died in a knife fight over here. So, okay. So, the story was like, I had to tell Eddie's story. So a day went by or something, and then Gerard's friend Mark called all excited the next morning, and he said, you're not going to believe this, Joe. He said, what? He said, my wife went to school with Eddie. He used to live in the area, and when there was a bowling alley across the way and all, and they had the shanty town there. They had the old, workers' houses there. So before all this other stuff was built. And he said, my wife went to school with him, and he was a big, tall Jamaican guy.
I don't know if he was Jamaican. I think that was what our original thought was, which we
Okay,
had
if
in
I'm
the
wrong
book.
on that.
Yeah, I think later on we found out that he was actually what they call Black Irish.
Oh,
And
really?
that's what
Oh,
you would put.
okay.
Yeah, this is not in the book.
I didn't know that.
I
Okay,
found out
all
from
right. So I'm
Gerard
corrected on
later
that.
on. I mean, the
But he
story
was-
keeps going and going.
Yeah,
So-
we get more and more of this.
Yeah.
But he described himself as a big black guy.
Right.
And he said, and he died. He got into a fight over drugs, and he got knifed. Right, he died.
Yeah, and you had picked this up. You had
Yeah, the
had
whole
this set,
story.
and you knew it's like Eddie wanted his story to be told,
Right.
and he was able to communicate. This is why I say that Joe is like his own mediumship tool. I mean, he's a medium, so it's like having our own
I'm
ghost
my own
hunting
ghost meter.
tool.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So it was amazing that we had made connection, but
Yeah, that was a great
he
one.
doesn't
That was-
leave. Like Eddie stays around, but
stays
that
around.
energy was more also towards that back alleyway. So it was really amazing that Joe was able to pick this up. And like I
think
said,
I
it's
think
an
Eddie's
ongoing
here.
thing. Yeah, well, it's been an ongoing thing
You
because
just slow down your speech.
oh yeah, you're freezing on your end. You're freezing up. Have we lost you, Joe?
Eddie, stop it.
So
He's
it's
here. He's
amazing
here.
because we do
Can you
find
hear me
out
now?
things. Yeah. Okay, but we do find things as time goes on,
Okay,
which
good.
is really
Yeah, that was
amazing.
Eddie just saying hello.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, great story. We have some, you forget. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Did I go to the other side of the veil?
I don't know.
You hear
I'm
me?
wondering if one of us did. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
And I can hear you, no problem.
Okay. All right. Well, we
No
do
problem.
have a question here now that we're getting
Sure.
towards the end here. We
Okay.
have a question from Jessica. Do you need to take black and white images in order to capture orbs? Very good question. You don't. In fact, a lot of these pictures were taken in color. The reason why you're seeing them in black and white is because these are the books that were actually printed for the book, which were converted to black and white. Some of the early pictures we showed you from the original ghost books, those were taken with black and white film. So they were black and white. But some of the more recent ones like Fear All Dolce, that was actually a color photograph originally. So you can get them. It could be in color or black and white. Doesn't matter at all. Good question. Anyone else have any questions for us tonight? Give it a minute if anyone's typing. In the meantime, if you're typing your questions, I'll tell you that we have done several of these webinars. Again, if you liked what you've been seeing this past month, do let us know because we are thinking about continuing this, once or twice a month. And if you don't subscribe to my newsletter, you can get to that by going to my website, Kerriann Flanagan Brosky.com, and you could sign up. If you forget how to spell my big long name, just go to ghostsoflonisland.com. And by getting the newsletter and an occasional email, it will keep you up to date on what we're doing and new book projects. You'll get an invitation to the book launch at the book review. So again, Haunted Long Island Mysteries is coming out next fall, and hopefully things will be back to normal and we will be, back up and running with in-person events. I also was using my headset tonight, so I hope that helped people hear me better. So we decided to do that. We have from Larry, let's see. Oh yeah, okay. This is from Larry. Joe has previously said he made contact with the flight crew while at the scene of a crash. Have you ever tried to contact the flight crew from Flight 800 that crashed near Smith Point Beach? Yeah, because you had mentioned about this. That was more of a small plane crash that you.
That's right. It was
Right.
the Indian Wells crash out in East Hampton. No, I have not. I sometimes spirits reach out to us when they want to talk to us. So I've never had anything from Flight 800. I'd have to look back at my notes. Possibly when it happened, I might have gotten some intuition. I did run into people that did have feelings that something had happened. But personally, I don't think so. But then again, I've never tried to contact them. I think sometimes the spirits, so many people want to make a connection that it's almost like it's overwhelming to them, and they really just want to cross over, and they don't want to stay near the physical. You know, those spirits have moved on.
Okay. So Larry says, must be shy ghosts.
Possibly. Most
and-
are not, though.
And also, if you are interested, I am selling Historic Haunts of Long Island, Historic Crimes of Long Island, the metal, and the adaptation of the children's book, The Ghostly Tales of Long Island. On my website, you can buy them directly through me now. There's a shopping cart, and everything's up there, and I am doing personalization, so you could say who you want to personalize for. It makes a great gift, and I will sign them for you and ship them out, and it's free shipping until the end of the year. So if you're interested in that, again, go on the website, ghostsoflongisland.com or kerriannflanaganbrosky.com. If you're interested in hearing more EVPs, you can also go to my website and look under Historic Haunts of Long Island, and you will see a link to get you to Joe's website. And you can actually read along with the book and listen to the EVPs and the Ghost Box recordings that we've been discussing throughout the month. So at that point, I don't think we have any other questions. Again, I would like to thank all of you for your support during these challenging times. It took a lot to put these webinars together and sort of reinvent the wheel and get used to the technology, but I feel that people have really enjoyed them, and to give up a night to be with us, we're very, very grateful. So thank you one and all, and have a good night and happy Halloween. Take care.
Halloween.
Take care,
Bye-bye
everyone.
now.
Bye.